Despite there being talk of a board meeting today at West Ham United, one of the agenda items that is thought to be discussed is Nuno Espirito Santo's future. But it seems that it may not have been discussed at all, or if it has been, it's not the top of the agenda priority list. Um, Apparently, the meeting that was held today was to discuss future transfer business to try and salvage what's left of the season that we have in the Premier League. And as each defeat passes us by, relegation seems to be a foregone conclusion now. You see, if we do get relegated, the board might be viewing Nuno as the very man to actually get us promoted again. Now, just how long it'll be to get promoted back to the Premier League is anyone's guess, as there's a fair chance that we may not bounce back straight away if we do go down. But for Nuno, he's been there before. He got Wolves promoted to the Premier League at the first time of asking. He took over as manager in July 2017, and in that first season, Wolves became champions with a dominant 99 points. That's one of the highest number of points ever achieved in the Championship. So, with relegation being a serious threat, would Nuno be the ideal man to oversee a promotion challenge? But would the man himself want to take over or want to take on that task? Would he relish another season in the Championship after having tasted the Premier League? Well, I guess that's all down to the current West Ham ownership and their continued support of the manager. Everyone is currently questioning, why are we spending money on players in this transfer window? But I think the answer is pretty obvious. We're not only trying to buy our way out of the relegation battle that we're in right now, but if we do get relegated, Nuno will have been given a nucleus of players that he can use for the beginning of next season, in which he can then add to when the summer transfer window comes along. And if the board back him, Nuno will stay, because the summer transfer window available to him will enable him to mould the squad to his liking. Sure, there'll be many players leaving if we go down. The likes of Paqueta, Bowen, Fernandes, and many others are likely to jump ship. Hence the need to start rebuilding, and probably now, in order to cushion the impact as much as possible should the inevitable happen. And then we look at players like Tati Castellanos and Pablo. Now, they may have well been signed with that honest discussion in mind. Castellanos and Pablo are not stupid. They are well aware of the predicament that West Ham find themselves in well before they sign for West Ham. And if they help to keep West Ham in the Premier League with their goals, then those signings will have paid off significantly. However, if they're unable to help us retain our Premier League status, then I can imagine that they would become part of the nucleus of Nuno's squad for the 2026-27 promotion challenge. That's why there are still plans to keep recruiting players in this January window. And we start getting them in now and have that honest conversation of what might happen should we get relegated. I guess that's why Nuno has made it quite clear that he wants players who are going to fight for the cause. He doesn't want players at the club who will not be interested in fighting for West Ham. And if part of that fight might be having to do it in the Championship next season, then so be it. As for Nuno, will he stay? Well, as I've stated, I think he will if he's backed. So how have we got ourselves to this stage? That we're in right now, the predicament that we're in. West Ham's 2-1 defeat to Nottingham Forest at home on Tuesday night has opened up a 7-point gap between the two teams near the bottom of the Premier League. West Ham are now in even deeper trouble after the 4 crucial and supposedly winnable games that we've just played. Now, whilst we can still mathematically survive the drop, it seems that the life has been sucked out of this team, who simply cannot buy a win at the moment. We either play badly, as we did against Wolves last weekend, and deserve to get beaten, or we play okay, we play well, And then VAR and the referee seems to decide our fate and conspire against us with several questionable decisions that just went against us against Forest. But the Nottingham Forest game isn't the first game this season where poor decisions have been made against us. It seems to have happened throughout most of the season. I sat there after the final whistle and felt something quite heavy leave me. It wasn't just the 3 points that we didn't get. I guess it was the hope, the little flame that you keep alive. Last night, that flame felt like it'd been snuffed out by more than just a bad result. But it's not just about one game, is it? It's the way the season has unfolded. The near misses, the decisions that go against us, the sense that when you do things right on the pitch, something off it pulls you back. It's exhausting to watch a team that looks like it's up for the fight at times and then be undone by things that are way beyond the players' control. And yet, less than 3 years ago, we were celebrating in Prague. We lifted a European trophy and the whole club felt alive with possibility. Remember that night? I do. The noise, the atmosphere, the feeling that we'd finally arrived. How do you go from that to this in such a short space of time? Those 3 years in Europe felt as if it was proof that West Ham had turned a corner and that we could start dreaming big. But trophies don't fix structure. They don't mend a fractured recruitment policy, or they just paper over years of poor decision making. Winning gave us a memory to cling to, absolutely, but it didn't change the foundations that were already shaky. The move to the London Stadium was supposed to be the next chapter. Bigger ground, bigger revenue, a platform to grow. Instead, it felt like we've traded our soul for a promise that has never quite arrived. Upton Park had grit, it had identity. The London Stadium has given us capacity, but it didn't give us a plan. The London Stadium was meant to galvanise us, to lift the club into a new era. Instead, we have steadily gone backwards despite the 3-year blip, as we can now see it, in Europe. And it's created a massive disconnect with the fan base. You can't measure everything in seats and sponsorship. Football needs a heartbeat, and the board seems to have forgotten that. And talking of the board, David Gold used to be a figure who, for all his faults, managed to keep some kind of balance at the club. And since he's passed away, it feels like someone has taken the brakes off. Decisions that might have been tempered before now seem to be steamrolled through. Transfers, managers, direction. It's like we're being steered by impulse rather than a plan. When one voice that used to moderate things is gone, the dynamics change. That's not to say everything falls just on one person, but leadership matters. The choices made at the top ripple down to the training ground, to the scouting room, to the dressing room, to the players on the pitch. And look at the managerial merry-go-round that we've had. Big name signings, big headlines, and then nothing. We've had appointments that felt like statements rather than sensible fits for the club. Graham Potter was supposed to be a smart, progressive choice. Even I thought he was the right man for the job, but it didn't click. It felt like a gamble that cost us time and stability. Potter's tenure, and others like it, exposed a lack of coherent footballing identity. You can't keep changing the voice in the dressing room and expect the choir to sing in the same tune. Managers need time and they need structure that supports them. Instead, we've had stop-start projects and a squad assembled without a clear blueprint. And player recruitment? How many signings have we watched arrive and with hope and then they drift away? We've spent money, but not always wisely. Players who don't fit the system, who are past their best, who are gambles without a safety net. It's painful to see potential wasted because the scouting and recruitment aren't joined up with the manager's vision. And it's not just the players. It's the arrogance that creeps in when decisions are made just for looks. When the priority becomes headlines rather than building a spine for the team, we've needed a director of football, which would have given us that spine. We've needed one for years. Someone who understands the club, a scouting network that finds the right profile of players, and a board that accepts long term work over short term fixes. Fans feel betrayed, not by the lads who run themselves into the ground every week, well, some of them do, but by a system that keeps letting them down. We deserve leadership that respects that. Instead, we get excuses and Brady PR when things go wrong. We also have to be honest with ourselves. The players are human. They make mistakes, managers make mistakes, but the pattern, the repeated missteps in recruitment, in the managerial churn, in the sense that the club's direction is reactive rather than proactive, that's what brought us here. That's why we're in the position that we're in now. It's a slow erosion, not a single catastrophe. And then there's VAR and refereeing decisions. When you're already fragile, every marginal call feels like a mountain to climb. We play well and decisions go against us. We play poorly and then we deserve to lose, of course. It's a cruel symmetry. But blaming officials alone is too easy to make. The real question is, why are we in a position where marginal calls decide our fate? We shouldn't be in that position. There have been many games this season where we should have been winning handsomely. So if a bad call is made, it wouldn't have made a difference. We have to own the parts we can control. We've got to tighten up defensively. We've got to be smarter in the final third. And we've got to manage games better. But we also need the club to stop making it harder for the team by chopping and changing the foundations. Look, if relegation comes, it will be the result of years of choices made, not just a bad run of form. I keep thinking about the fans who've been through everything before. The old diehard fans who remember the terraces at the bowling, the kids who saw us lift the European trophy, and everyone believed. They deserve better, don't they? Rather than this limbo that we're in. They deserve a club that plans, that respects the history of the club, and that builds for the future. There's still time to act. It will take humility from the top, a willingness to admit mistakes, and a commitment to make a clear footballing philosophy. Help Max Hahn, our head of technical recruitment and analysis, to continue building that scouting network. Stick with a manager that fits the club's identity and give that manager time. And reconnect with the supporters in a meaningful way. It's not a quick fix, but it is possible. And maybe that's why Nuno seems to be good for the here and now and quite possibly good for the future, even if we do go down. You see, if we go down and he stays, then supporting his vision could reap reward. I guess we're West Ham, aren't we? We deal with the good, we deal with the bad. We've seen far worse before, haven't we? The club has soul. The club needs that soul to be come back. It can't be bought or sold. But soul needs structure. If the people in charge can see that, if they can put the pride aside and do the hard work, maybe we can climb out of this situation that we're in. If not, we'll be left wondering how a club that once lifted a European trophy ended up fighting for survival. Whatever happens on the pitch, we'll be there. We'll be singing, we'll be traveling, we'll be holding the line, but we will demand better and continue to demand better. We'll ask for transparency, we'll ask for a plan, we'll ask for leaders who understand that West Ham is more than just a brand, it's a community, or it certainly once was. And communities deserve a leader who will build and not break.